What's up guys, my name is Ace, and welcome to today's episode of Spawn Guides, the series where I cover every common spawn and how they behave on every map in Call of Duty Ghosts for Domination. In this week's episode, we're going to be covering the map Tremor, as requested by you guys in the comments of the previous episode. Let's get into it. Alright, so starting it off, as always, I'm going to give a little bit of a disclaimer. If you guys are new to the series and you haven't seen the first episode of this, the prelude to this series, make sure you go and watch that first because it really introduces a base of knowledge of general spawn behavior and domination, and you need that base of knowledge to be able to understand what I'm talking about throughout this series. So if you haven't seen that, then make sure you click the annotation link right here and go and watch it. I'll also leave a link in the description. Alright, so mapping out the spawns on this map, as you can see, it's actually a really simple spawn layout. It's really easy to remember the spawn locations on this map because there aren't a ton of them because it is one of the smaller maps. For the A flag, there are actually only 3 spawns that are specifically attached to only the A flag. As you can see, there are some teal spawns there as well, and those are shared spawns, but we'll talk about those in just a little bit. The one A spawn that you kind of have to look out for is that back middle A spawn, and you can basically be right around the corner from that spawn and they will still spawn there, so you really have to be aware of that and always check that corner if you're coming around there. For the B flag, we have 4 spawns attached to it. There are 2 in the bottom floor of that middle building. There's 1 in the medical tent or the aid tent, whatever you want to call that tent area there. And then there's 1 right next to the B flag. The thing that you really have to pay attention to with these B spawns is that they're extremely easy to block off with lines of sight from quite a distance away. So you have to be really careful if you're trying to contain your enemies at the B flag. It's really easy to flip those spawns out. The 2 spawns that are in the building, they can be blocked by 1 guy in the bottom floor of that building very easily. That spawn in the medical tent can be blocked by a line of sight from quite a distance away near the A flag. You can actually see that spawn, so you can block that spawn from there very easily. And then finally, the spawn next to the B flag can be blocked when you're in that alleyway where that yellow trash can is. It can be easily blocked from there, or if you're up in one of those windows in the middle building, you can block that spawn very easily. So you really have to be careful. These B spawns are very easy to flip out to another spawn. Moving on to the C spawns, there's once again 4 spawns attached to the C flag, and with these spawns they're all fairly predictable and there's nothing really worth mentioning about them. Okay, so now for the shared spawns. These are the ones that require a little bit of an explanation. These spawns are really weird in that you can spawn at these places with any combination of flags being held, especially if you get flipped out of your spawn. So the bottom spawn is what I like to call an emergency spawn, is what it seems like. So oftentimes if the red team, will say, holds B and all of their B spawns are blocked off, a lot of the times they'll flip out to this bottom shared spawn here. And it's kind of, that's why I call it an emergency spawn. It's gotten to the point where they don't have anywhere to spawn at B, so it'll flip them all the way across the map to that spawn right there. The other spawn is also a little bit weird like that. I've seen teams spawn there when they only hold the C flag. If the C spawns are blocked off, they'll actually flip all the way to that spawn sometimes. So it's a little bit weird. That top spawn also behaves as sort of a shared spawn between A and B. So if you hold the A flag and the B flag, that spawn right there is a very common spawn for your team. Just because it's kind of right in the middle, right between A and B. So it's a very common spawn. The one on the bottom could also sort of behave as a spawn that you can sort of anchor to, but it's not very likely. It's a very rare spawn from what I've seen. With about an hour of testing, it was a very, very rare spawn, but it did happen and you do have to pay attention to that spawn. If you hold the C flag and you're pushing really hard towards the A flag and your entire team is pushing with you, you can anchor your spawn to that point. And same goes for the A flag. If you're at the A flag and you're pushing towards the C flag from that side of the map with your team, you can anchor your team spawn to that point. Alright, so that covers the spawn map and the spawn layout. Now let's go into a real in-game situation, and for this one I'm actually going to show you guys a little clip from a live commentary. This was from the first episode of the PTFO challenge, and it really illustrates how I was able to predict a spawn at the A spawn here. Okay, they're still going to be spawning A here. Oh, I'm going to need his gun. Oh, they're going to be spawning right around the corner there. I got to get this guy's gun. There's a gun. Okay, easy read. So as you can see, I knew that the enemy team was going to be spawning at A still because that was the only flag that they held, and that one side of the map was completely open. There was no teammates over there, so I knew those spawns were safe spawns, and I knew that I was blocking the one really common back A spawn, and my teammate was blocking the A spawn right next to the A flag. So that leaves that top A spawn as well as that shared spawn between B and A, which is where the guy actually did spawn, and it was very easy to predict that spawn. Alright, so this next gameplay example is just to show you guys how sticky that one A spawn can be. And in this situation, it actually kind of caught me off guard a little bit. This guy spawned just out of my line of sight. I was really close to that back A spawn, and he spawned there just before I came around the corner. So technically he didn't spawn in my line of sight, but as you can see very clearly, he was just coming off spawn right there. So be really careful with that A spawn. They often spawn there when you're just around the corner from them. Alright, so now it's time to test your guys' knowledge of how the spawns work on this map. So for the first test, as you can see, the green team holds A and the red team holds B and C, and the red team spread out pretty well between B and C, and the green team is kind of pushed a little bit more towards the B side of the map. Where would a green guy likely spawn right now? I'll give you guys a few seconds to make a decision. If you guys said one of these two spawns right here, you're most likely correct. Let's go over why that is. So this one is actually pretty simple. If you guys were to draw a circle around the green team right now, you'll notice that the back two A spawns, so the back middle A spawn and the spawn that's right next to the A flag, are not being anchored by that team. So we can rule those out right away. Now there is one spawn inside that circle, and that is that shared spawn. So this is the spawn that I would say is most likely to happen, but I wouldn't rule out that other A spawn as well because it is technically still anchored by the team over into that direction. Moving on to the second test, we're actually going to leave everything the way it is right now. We're just going to say that this red player right here by the B flag gets killed. Where will this red player spawn right now? Once again, I'll give you guys a few seconds to make a decision. Did you guys pick this spawn right here? I hope so, because that's most likely the correct answer. Let's go over why that is. So the first thing to notice is that these three B spawns are very clearly blocked by green players, so those are completely out of the question right now. Now, once again, if we were to draw a circle around the red team to kind of find out where they're anchoring the spawns to, you'll notice that there's only one spawn within that circle, and that is the spawn that I selected. The back C spawns aren't really being anchored by the red team, and that one B spawn right next to the B flag is also not being anchored by the red team. So that is why I selected that spawn as the best candidate. Alright, so now let's ramp up the difficulty for these tests. I'm going to take away your guys' spawn map and give you guys this situation right here. As you can see, the red team is really trapped at the B flag right now, and the green team is putting a lot of pressure on them. Where would a red guy spawn right now? And this one's pretty difficult, so if you need a few extra seconds, just make sure you pause the video. Alright, so this is where that shared spawn I talked about earlier comes into play. If you guys said this spawn right here, you're most likely correct. Let's go over why that is. So first, let's bring back the spawn map to make things a little bit easier to illustrate for you guys. Now, since the red team only holds a B flag, the game wants to spawn them at a B spawn, but you'll notice that every one of the B spawns is very clearly blocked by a green player. This means the game now tries to spawn them at a shared spawn. But as you can see, this shared spawn right here is very clearly blocked by this green player that's staring right at it and standing right next to it. So it's going to go to this other shared spawn. I have seen this situation happen many times in the past, so I'm very confident that that's what will happen in this given situation. So that's all I have for this episode of Spawn Guides. Make sure you leave me a comment letting me know which map you'd like to see me cover next. Keep in mind, I've covered all of the maps that you can see here on the screen. And if you guys have missed any of these episodes, just click the annotation link and it'll take you to that video. If you enjoyed, a like rating is always appreciated, and don't forget to subscribe for more if you haven't already. I'll talk to you guys next time.